Okay, guys, we're now broadcasting live. I wanted to welcome everybody to the Surprise Regional Chamber of Commerce Convener event. This is your first time attending one of our events. The Surprise Regional Chamber of Commerce periodically convenes these events, and they're designed for business leaders and community stakeholders to learn a little bit more about some of the challenges and opportunities facing our community. So we have two very exciting guests speaking to the business community today. And to introduce those, I'd like to introduce Chris Herring, our public policy chairperson for the Surprise Regional Chamber of Commerce. So Chris, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Raul. Well, we are joined today by Congresswoman Debbie Lesko, representing the 8th District of Arizona, as well as Vartan Jahanian from the United States Chamber of Commerce. So we're excited to have them both with us this morning, or if you're on the East Coast, this afternoon. And so we'll be talking about a lot of public policy current events, and specifically things going on in Washington surrounding the current pandemic, the economy, and the upcoming election. So a lot to cover today. We're excited to have both of them with us. Just to set the groundwork, I am the chair of the Public Policy Committee for the Surprise Regional Chamber, and we bring you these events to help inform our members, the business community at large, and the general public here in the Northwest Valley about what's going on in Washington, and to make sure that we're being a voice for the business community in Washington as well as here in Arizona. So we're glad you're able to join us, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce Vartan and give him a few minutes to speak to all of you about the U.S. Chamber, and I know he has some great things to share. So Vartan.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you to Raul and Mary and the entire team at the Surprise Chamber for putting this event together, and thank you for all the work that you've done since March, really working with the small businesses in your area to help them through the various loan programs that the federal government has offered, whether it's the Ppp Program or the EIDL program. The Surprise Chamber has been really on the front lines with the small businesses, connecting them to local banks and to the Small Business Administration to help the small businesses in the area get through the pandemic. So very, very grateful to you for all the work that you've done. And unfortunately, the work is not finished yet because the government has not fully reopened all of Arizona and parts of and different parts of the country. So we still have a lot of work to do. And we're very, very pleased that that your local Congresswoman Debbie Lesko, who we're very pleased to have on this call today, has really been working hard for the small businesses to get some of this loan programs out to the small businesses in the community. She's really been a champion for the small businesses of Arizona and her congressional district. And that's one of the many reasons why the U.S. Chamber has once again this year awarded her with the Spirit of Enterprise Award. Actually, this might be her first time because this is her first full term in Congress. But throughout her entire career in the state legislature, she's been on the front lines working with small businesses. But this year especially, we're very pleased to present her with the Spirit of Enterprise Award. This award goes to the members of Congress who have voted with the small business community. At least 70% of the time, the Congresswoman has gotten far above that. Not only that, we've given her special recognition for the leadership that she's done in Congress for small businesses, and that includes co-sponsoring certain pieces of legislation and staying off certain bad pieces of legislation. Some of the highlights of the bills that she's really supported and been on the front lines with is the passage of the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement. This USMCA has been tremendous in supporting small businesses in Arizona sell their goods and services around the world. She has also worked very hard to repeal the Cadillac tax, which is a very frivolous tax on businesses that want to provide the best healthcare to their employees. So we're very grateful to her for that. And that's why she got the Spirit of Enterprise Award, but we also made a very additional special announcement yesterday that she has received the endorsement of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And it's again for her leadership throughout the pandemic and throughout her tenure in Congress. And really, when we looked at her record, there was no other choice in your area. It's somebody who is extremely supportive of the business community and somebody who supports higher taxes, more regulations, who's really going to stifle the growth of small businesses, especially during this downturn. So we're very honored to present her with the Spirit of Enterprise Award. This is actually what the award looks like. Usually we have like a nice reception in Washington where the members can pick up their award, but unfortunately we don't have that. This is Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard's award. She actually received the award this year. Usually we present this in the district. She's in Hawaii. It would have been nice to go out and give that to her there, and also to visit with the Congresswoman in Arizona, but unfortunately we haven't been able to do that. But so again, we're very honored to present the Congresswoman with the Spirit of Enterprise Award for her tremendous work for Congress, and also to endorse her wholeheartedly as she seeks re-election in November. So we're excited to hear what she's got in store for the rest of the year and also for the coming year. So congratulations, Congresswoman, and thank you so much for your leadership for small businesses of Arizona.
Thank you, Vartan. And that we second that here with the Surprise Regional Chamber. Congresswoman Lesko has been a huge advocate for small businesses in our area. And we all know that right now, small businesses especially are going through a really, really difficult time. There are very few exceptions to that. I think businesses of all sizes are having to figure things out, but small businesses don't always have the resources. And when the government puts up additional hurdles, it can become nearly impossible to be successful. So we're thankful for representatives like Congresswoman Lesko who understand that, who come from that background, having been a small business owner herself, and understand how important it is for the government to be listening to the needs of small business, being receptive, and then most importantly, taking action and actually taking steps that make it possible to be successful and achieve the American dream of independent success. So very, very thankful for her leadership in that area here in the Northwest Valley. So we were going to give Congresswoman some time at this point. So Congresswoman Lesko, we want to give you, 15 minutes or so to kind of take the floor and share with us your thoughts on kind of things that are going on. We're going to have some Q&A. We have some questions that we want to ask, definitely about the stimulus progress, about what you see possibly happening in the next 30 days prior to the election. We know that there often isn't a lot accomplished in these 30 days leading up to an election, but this year there's so much that is needed to get done, really, really important things. And so I know we're all eagerly awaiting updates on that. We'll have some specific questions on it, but we first wanted to give you some time to give an update about the district, give an update about Washington and what's going on. So I'm going to turn the floor over to you for about 15 minutes to share with us your thoughts.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, and thank you, Vartan. What a great, thank you for the award, and thank you for the endorsement. I greatly appreciate it. You guys do such hard work, and Raul, the Surprise Chamber is awesome. Can I just say that you guys really get involved with the community, with the small businesses, and so Vartan, they're really a model for a local Chamber of Commerce. And I've known Chris for, I don't know how many years now, and he's a great person to be there leading the government affairs position. Well, it really is an honor to serve in the United States Congress. However, since I'm a Republican, we're in the minority in the U.S. House of Representatives. And just in case your viewers don't know what that means, it means that more Democrat Congress members were elected last time around than Republican Congress members. And so that means the Democrats are in charge. That means the Speaker of the House is Democrat Speaker Pelosi. And it means that the chairman of every committee are Democrats, and they set the agenda. And so pro-business bills, usually Republicans lead pro-business bills, and often my Democratic colleagues, not all of them, but a vast majority of them, really believe in more government regulations and that government knows better. And it really stifles innovation and growth in small businesses. So I want to just briefly, I know we're going to get to some stuff in the questions, but I am a huge supporter of small businesses. I used to be self-employed, so I was a small business owner myself. And during the 6 years that I was in the Arizona House and the 3 years in the Arizona Senate, I often got recognition for being very pro-business, not only from the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, where I think I was named Senator of the Year one year, but also the National Federation of Independent Businesses, which also represents small businesses. They have given me awards. And it's because small businesses are really the backbone of our economy. But large businesses are too, and often they get vilified by my Democratic counterparts, which I really don't understand. Because after all, businesses are the ones that provide jobs to people, right? And so if you make it so difficult for them to be in business, they're not going to be able to employ people. So it always boggles my mind how many of my Democratic colleagues, and now you see on the Democrat side, Joe Biden, he wants to increase taxes on not only individuals, but small businesses and large businesses. He celebrates it, he promotes it. He says, yes, day one, I'm going to get rid of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Well, that will raise taxes by $4 trillion, and it will undo the tax relief that Republicans and President Trump did for 82% of all Americans. So 82% of all Americans are going to get a tax, their taxes are going to be higher. Why the heck would anybody vote for that? I do not understand it. And then, of course, Joe Biden, all the Democrats, they would increase regulations. They're complaining all the time how President Trump and his administration are reducing regulations on businesses. I do not understand why my Democratic colleagues villainize corporations. They villainize success. When somebody grows their business and works hard, 80 hours a week they're working and they become successful, all of a sudden they're villainized. This does not make sense to me. Now, as you know, prior to coronavirus, President Trump and Republicans passed the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And President Trump also reduced a lot of regulations, as did legislation that Republicans led. And that led to a booming economy, the lowest, it was record unemployment rates for everyone. I heard from multiple businesses that couldn't find people to fill their job openings. It was fantastic. Well, then of course, coronavirus hit. And it threw a wrench in the whole thing. But for those people that are listening and they're on the fence, I think President Trump, you only got two choices for president. You got President Trump and you got Joe Biden. Joe Biden has already said he's going to raise taxes and regulations. President Trump has already proven that he can have a booming economy along with the Republicans in Congress. They did that. So let's make sure that they get reelected or elected. To me, it's very simple. Now, once coronavirus hit, then government shut down businesses. It wasn't like we were mean or anything. It's just we had to do it because this was a new, novel virus, and a lot of people didn't know about it. And so the president chose to close down the country for a while, the businesses for a while, and so did the governor and elected local leaders. But now, as you see from President Trump, it's been, he keeps on encouraging everything needs to reopen, and I totally agree with him. Now we need to be safe and we need to be cautious, but we cannot let the fear take over our lives. And so I'm a huge supporter of making sure that our businesses remain open, that our schools have an option for parents to send their children back to school. So if the parent thinks it's safe enough to have their child at school, they can send them to school. If the parent is afraid, they can keep them home, but the parent has the choice. And that's why I supported 3 relief packages in the US Congress, because government shut down the businesses. So I thought it was fair that government help those businesses stay afloat and pay their workers. Now, the CARES Act, as you know, had several features. There was actually several relief packages, but most people call it the CARES Act, right? There was one of them called the CARES Act. And a big part of that was the Paycheck Protection Program, which was a loan grant program for small businesses so they could stay afloat and continue to pay their workers. I supported that not only once, but then I supported giving more money to it and expanding it and making it more flexible the second time. And that was both in March of this year. And then I actually led the charge on the US floor of House of Representatives on, I think it was Friday of last week. And we had a Congo line of Republicans asking the Speaker of the House to make sure that we open up the Paycheck Protection Program, again, commonly known as PPP. Well, Pelosi wouldn't do it. She wouldn't put the bill on the floor that there's still money left in the PPP program that businesses could use. But she refuses to hear the bill and bring it to the floor for a vote. And that's what's super frustrating to me. Now, listen, I'm gonna open it up for questions right now, because I think that's probably the most interesting part and what your members want to hear. But I just briefly want to say, I really do believe that this is the most important election in my lifetime. And I've been involved in politics for probably 20 years now. Prior to that, I was involved as a volunteer in the schools and in the city that I lived in. But in the Republican Party, I've been involved for 20 years, and everybody always says every election, this is the most important election, but boy, I see it firsthand. Whether you're talking about if you want the jobs and the economy to come back, vote Republican. If you want our communities safe, meaning if you want increased funding for the military, if you want to make sure our border is secure, if you want to make sure that our police are funded and not defunded, you need to vote Republican. And so that's my message to you. And again, thank you for everything that you do. Thank you for what the Surprise Regional Chamber does, all of the businesses. And again, thank you to the US Chamber for your endorsement and the award that you gave me today.
Well, thank you, Congresswoman Lesko. So let's go to a few questions here. We're going to stay on the stimulus talk right now, and maybe stimulus is the wrong way to put it. I think that was that's part of what we're talking about with the CARES Act previously and some of the bills to be considered now. But I think one thing people want to know is with less than a month, I think there's 20 something nowadays to the election. What are the chances that additional stimulus in some form, maybe not the entire package that either the Republicans or the Democrats are proposing, but that some form of stimulus is passed prior to the election? What do you think the odds are? What needs to happen for that to take place?
I think it depends on how much pressure is put on Speaker Pelosi. Speaker Pelosi passed now 2 relief packages that were totally partisan. Democrats were they're the ones that backed it. she called it the Heroes Act. She wanted it to sound good, so it was Heroes 1.0 and Heroes 2.0. But there were things in that bill that had poison pills, and they knew it. I mean, Speaker Pelosi isn't a dummy. She wouldn't get to the position that she's at without being politically savvy, right? And so they put some crazy stuff in there. And the media, they just talk about the price difference, that Pelosi wants to pass 3 trillion and she'll go down to 2 point something trillion. And Mnuchin says, how about 1.5 million? But it's more than that. Packed in both of Pelosi's relief bills, which was 1.0 and 2.0, were some radical agenda that there's no way Republicans were going to support. And one of those was releasing federal prisoners into our communities. And it didn't matter if they were dangerous or not. It didn't matter if they were charged with murder, rape. If they were 50 years old, they were released. If they had less than 1 year left on their sentence, they were released into our community. That was in their relief package bill. I mean, total insanity. The other thing that was in Pelosi's relief 1.0 and 2.0 is that it would give the $1,200 stimulus checks to illegal immigrants. Well, I'm sorry, my constituents do not want their taxpayer dollars going to illegal immigrants, and so I wasn't going to go for that. Republicans aren't going to go for that. The other thing it did was it federalized the elections. So in Arizona, we have a law that prohibits ballot harvesting. We also have a law that requires ID to vote. Her bill would take that away. It would take away any state or local authority over elections, totally nationalize it, prohibiting states from requiring voter ID to vote, requiring states to do same-day voter registration, and also legalizing ballot harvesting nationwide. Now, what the heck does that have to do with the coronavirus? Nothing. What it has to do with is the Democrats' radical agenda, and they're trying to sneak it in a bill and then blame the Republicans for not helping the American people. So it's very telling that in this last relief package that the Pelosi put through, it's called Heroes 2.0, 18 Democrats in Congress joined all of the Republicans in voting no. So I don't even understand why she did it, because the Democrats in the swing districts that are afraid they're going to lose their seats have been pleading with Pelosi saying, hey, we need a bill that actually can get signed into law. And in order for a bill to get signed into law, you need the buy-in from the Republicans, right? Because the Republicans have the majority in the Senate and we have a Republican president. So you just can't keep passing stuff that's not going to be signed into law. And if you really care about the American businesses and the American people, don't you think you'd sit down and actually negotiate so you could get something signed into law instead of just passing radical stuff that you know is not going to pass at all? I mean, that's what I said on the floor of the House of Representatives. But I don't understand why she did this, because those same people that were asking her to pass something, they voted against her bill. So it didn't help them at all. It didn't help anybody. All it did was another show that, oh, they passed something. Very frustrating. So my answer is, I don't know, quite honestly. It depends on how much pressure I think the Democrat Congress members in those swing election states where basically it's Trump won their district and they're afraid that they're going to get voted out. They want to show something that they got something done for the American people. And so far Pelosi won't do it. She's stubborn. And like I said, I led a conga line of Republican Congress members on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives the other day, because I'm on Rules Committee, and so I was managing bills on the floor. And, you know, at least 35 times, 35 different Republicans came to the floor and said, Pelosi, they made a motion, it's a procedural thing, to get this bill on the floor that would open back up the Paycheck Protection Program so small businesses could get access to the money that's still left in there. And she said no. So, you know, I hope we can get something done, but I don't know what the chances are.
Okay. And you did bring up the HEROES Act. And that is the big House bill that's been debated, and I think you're right. It started somewhere $3.5 trillion, and then the version that they finally got down to was 2.2. And I appreciate you bringing up some of those points that even myself wasn't aware, since those bills are usually hundreds of pages long, and by the time you're done reading one, they've changed it. So, and you know, so that's you know, very helpful for everybody watching. You know, with the HEROES Act, you know, this morning, President Trump tweeted out a number of separate items that he would say, hey, I'd sign them today. He tweeted out support for a bill to help the airlines employees specifically. I want to be clear that it was about the employees, since there are hundreds of thousands of employees in that sector that are facing immediate layoffs. And could have happened last week, and they delayed, hoping there'd be a vote on something. But those layoffs are imminent. Also, what you already brought up, the PPP plan. He tweeted he would support and sign a bill that would release more funds, which again specifically goes to small businesses. My wife is an executive director of a school, and they utilize PPP funding to pay their teachers because, you know, they have not had students in those schools for a very long time. So to keep those teachers employed, that was vital and crucial. And now they're back at the place of what do we do? Also, there was discussion of additional stimulus checks to just everyday Americans, additional $1,200 checks. You know, those are all separate issues. Do you think any of those issues could be separately addressed? I know you kind of brought some of that up with the speaker not hearing a bill on the PPP. Do you see any of those getting addressed separately, or do you think at this point it's too gridlocked?
Well, it really is all up to Speaker Pelosi. I really believe that any one of those bills that you just talked about would pass. It would pass, but again, she's in control, and that's why elections are so important. Because the party that has the most elected Congress members, they're the ones in charge. That's why she's in charge. And she believes, you know, she wants her radical stuff in this bill. And it's probably just not her. I mean, she has to deal with these radicals that are in her own party. I mean, I deal with these folks each and every day when I'm in Washington, D.C., and some of these Congress members on the Democrat side, they even denied that parts of Seattle were taken over. I mean, really, they denied it. They said it didn't happen. Now that's crazy. And so she has to deal with these radical people. And so she's like, unless there's a package with the radical stuff that she wants in it, you know, no, she's not going to let these individual bills go. I mean, she's been very vocal. I mean, it's been very clear to see. I also want to give more funding to the schools. We already gave $30 billion to the schools. 850 million of that got to Arizona. But hey, if schools are opening back up and they need the money, I'm willing to give more money to the schools. We already gave $150 billion to the states, and you know, and then that funneled down to the cities, and so we've already done this. I mean, I'm a person that will negotiate, and I'll go part way. So if the big deal, if the big hang up really was only what is said in the media, that Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats want more money for states and local governments, I would go along with paying part of it. That's not what it's about. It's about her radical stuff, you know, releasing prisoners into society, taking over the elections from the states, and letting in same-day voter registration. I mean, oh, here's another one I almost forgot that was in Heroes 1.0 and Heroes 2.0. The Democrats want to extend the $600 per week in federal unemployment assistance through spring of next year. Now, I'm willing to approve a smaller amount, you know, like maybe $300 extra a week, because here in Arizona gives out a maximum of $240 a week in unemployment. But when you add that with a $600 a week in federal, that's $840 a week. It's $21 an hour. And businesses were telling me, just yesterday, I talked to a large business here in Arizona. They said they could not hire people back when their business started coming back because people were getting paid more to sit at home. Well, I'm not going to go for that. Republicans aren't going to go for that. And so that's what it's about. It's not just the dollar amount, which is important, but it's all these radical things that she's holding out. She will not, because she thinks that, you know, she thinks that it will play into her own hands and blame Trump and blame the Republicans. And the media is usually on the Democrat side. And so they don't talk about all these radical things that are in this bill. All they talk about is, oh, the Democrats want more money for state and local government, and Republicans don't want to bail out Democrat-run states that haven't, you know, done their finances well. Well, I agree with that. But listen, I'm willing to give if we can help the American people, but there's no way in heck I'm going to vote for a bill that releases dangerous prisoners into our communities.
Yeah, and there's a lot in there for everyone to digest in terms of what's in those bills. So I appreciate those thoughts. And I can say, you know, with the Chamber of Commerce here in Northwest Valley and family members and then close friends that have shared that they've had employees be very upset when they were called back from furloughs. Some say they weren't going to come back, and basically asking to get fired so they can continue to get the unemployment because it was significantly better than going back to work. And these were not minimum wage employees. So, you know, so that there was definitely a clear issue there with small businesses being able to maintain a workforce and even utilize the PPP loans the way they were supposed to be used, which was to keep people employed, because the unemployment benefits were so high. And so I think it's a difficult question. We want to make sure we're taking care of people, and but we also want to make sure that we're not incentivizing unemployment. So difficult problems to solve, and I appreciate your diligence on it. I want to talk about a specific area that's come up a few times, and I don't know that it's ever been really significantly addressed. And I'll bring up another, again, specific you know, example. Again, back to my wife, she's an administrator at a school, and they've had to deal with the issue of liability. Obviously, they need teachers, and, you know, the more students they have that come back to school, the more teachers they need. But one of the concerns for teachers and anyone that's going to work is, could I get sick at work? And for an employer, the question is, if my employee gets sick and I'm the one that asked them to come to work, am I going to be held liable? Are they going to sue me because they got coronavirus? And so I know a lot of businesses have that worry. I can tell you, my wife has had to spend a lot of time with her lawyers, the school lawyers, to talk about that, to figure out what happens. And they did have one teacher test positive and had, okay, what's going to happen? You know, it's a great deal of stress and anxiety because they want to take care of their teachers. They want to take care of their employees. They want to protect them. But they also are running a business. They have to take care of their students, and whatever your business is, you're trying to make sure that you can still put food on the table and a roof over your own head. And so this idea of liability protection has come back up. Would, you know, a stimulus potentially provide liability protection to small businesses so that they don't have crippling litigation that would basically put them out of business simply for having an employee come to work? And I can tell you, most of these businesses that we work with as a chamber, they are going above and beyond to to do everything they can. Sanitizing everything. I know some of them have invested tens of thousands of dollars into cleaning procedures, new machines, new products, new contracts with cleaning companies, obviously protection for their employees. And yet still there's that potential for liability. So what do you think can be done with that? Obviously there's a gridlock on the bill overall, but do you think a future stimulus, HEROES Act, some other form of COVID legislation will include liability protection? And what would you like to see that be?
Well, I hate to repeat myself, but it's up to Speaker Pelosi. I mean, it really does come down to her. She's holding the cards. I know that, the Senate tried to pass a bill. Well, it's up to Schumer too, because in the Senate, for those of you that don't know, you need 60 votes to really hear any bill, unless they change the rules, and it's not very often that they change the cloture rule. And so you need 7 Democrats to join with Republicans in the Senate. And the Republicans in the Senate tried to pass a bill that would include liability protections, and the Democrats blocked it. They're like, no way, we're not going for it. Republicans have been on record all along from the very beginning saying we need liability protections for businesses. That includes large businesses, small businesses, but also schools and nonprofits. Because think about it. I mean, if you're a business and you're afraid you're going to get multi-million-dollar lawsuits against you just for opening your business in case somebody that comes to your business gets COVID and decides to sue you, you might be a little bit reluctant to reopen your business or your school. And so this is very important to me and other Republicans. And the Democrats and Pelosi know that. So they're just refusing to go along with it. And, I could wish as much as you that she would let these individual bills go through, but she's not going to probably. My guess is if I was a betting woman, I would say there's probably a 95% chance that she would not go along with it, because all along the Democrats have been pushing for more unemployment insurance. That was their big ask in the Bipartisan Care Act. Their big ask all along was paying more unemployment to people. They even wanted more than the $600 a week, and Mnuchin wouldn't go along with it, right? Republicans all along from the beginning were pushing for the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP program for small businesses, helping the airlines, helping big businesses, and liability protection. We've been on record of that from the very beginning. And so since it's a divided, Congress, the Senate's Republican, the House is Democrat, we, kind of met in the middle and got it wasn't really the middle, but we got what we did because we were in the middle of a crisis, and at least we got something done. And I supported 3 of those relief packages. I was not going to go for those crazy ones where they're letting out prisoners and giving illegals money and extending unemployment insurance that pays people more to stay at home. But I hope so. But quite frankly, if Nancy Pelosi doesn't think that she politically has to do it, she's probably not going to do it. They're going to wait out, and if they win, God forbid, this is, in my view, the worst case scenario, is if the House remains Democrat, you have Nancy Pelosi still in charge after the election. If the Senate flips to Democrat, and you have Chuck Schumer in charge of the Senate, and if Biden wins, all businesses better, it's going to be bad. It's going to be bad for business. It's going to be bad for the economy. It's going to be bad for the nation. And I hope it doesn't happen. I pray it doesn't happen quite often, frequently.
And, you know, Congresswoman, thank you so much for your support of those liability protections. We talk to small businesses every day, and they're terrified that they're going to be hit with some kind of lawsuit saying that a customer or an employee acquired COVID from the workplace. And just to clarify, we're not talking about those employers who have followed the state, local, federal guidelines. We're talking, you know, as long as they provided all the PPE, and followed all the guidelines, they should have some kind of safe harbor so that they can't get sued. You see those unscrupulous attorneys on television all the time. They're saying, gosh, if you got COVID from the workplace, give us a call and we'll sue. That's the last thing employers need right now. That's the last thing that small businesses need. During this pandemic, that's going to be the tipping point for whether they stay in business or unfortunately, they shut down. So thank you for that. Thank you for that support. The trial lawyer lobby is very active in Washington. So we're doing everything we can at the U.S. Chamber, working with members of Congress like Congresswoman Lesko, who's standing by the small businesses. So thank you for that.
Well, thanks, Vartan. You know, I just, for the people that are watching that, you know, because you're busy doing your work and you don't really know the ins and outs of Congress and the Senate, I just want to say to you again, elections have consequences, right? And so we saw that. And the reason, I mean, you may think I'm partisan, but I'm just being truthful because I'm there each and every day. And I know, I see in front of me the bills that the Democrats support and the bills that the Democrats oppose, right? And so, as Vartan said, one of the major reasons that they're against giving liability protections to the businesses is, one, they, for whatever reason, they hate businesses, successful businesses. I don't understand it. They might not say it, but their actions speak louder than their words. And even some of them say it. They go after Walmart all the time. They go after big businesses. They think they're these total villains, right? Or rich people. They say rich people. Well, rich people are the, you know, for the most part, they're small business owners that have worked their way up and worked their butt off to get where they are. They took risks. And they got there. And so why should we penalize them for being successful? It's this total different philosophy that my Democratic colleagues have, that everything should be the same. So whether you work your butt off and have a business and you work it up and you do really well and you happen to make money off of that because you worked hard, wow, that's, according to them, they think that's terrible and you should give all your money to the person that didn't work at all. That's, I just totally disagree. It's totally opposite of the American dream. They always are villainizing corporations. It's insanity in my estimation. So I'm just telling you folks, this is an important election. And quite frankly, I don't care if you don't like Trump's tweets, all right? I mean, sometimes I don't like Trump's tweets. I cringe, you know? Sometimes I'm like, okay, that was not appropriate. But this is a bigger issue, okay? This is a bigger issue. It's about, is your business gonna survive or is it not gonna survive? Is the economy gonna go forward and go booming like it did under President Trump and when Republicans were in control? Or is it gonna go tank? But it's also other things too. Keeping our communities safe. There's a huge difference. There's a reason why President Trump, and most Republicans, but President Trump is endorsed by just about every law enforcement association in the entire nation, because they know who has their back. The other side, you hear them. First they started out saying, we want to defund the police, we want to dismantle the police. Well, now they're backing off and saying those exact words because they did polling and they determined, oh, we better not say that. But it's their actions that speak. You saw Kamala Harris in an interview saying, yeah, she wants to take money out of the police and put it elsewhere. She wants to reimagine policing. Well, that's code word for let's change it all and let this chaos ensue with the rioting and looting. You know, and then there's moral issues too. I mean, I know this is a business group, but businesses are made up of humans, right? And so when you have the Democrats and Speaker Pelosi and Joe Biden now not wanting to save the lives of a baby born alive. This is a baby born alive because there was an attempted abortion, but the abortion didn't work. I'm telling you, folks, I'm there in the Congress. We have tried over 100 times, Republicans, to say, if a baby is born alive, let's make sure it gets medical help so it doesn't just die. Pelosi, the Democrats, Biden are against that. This is unconscionable to me. We're not even talking about abortions anymore. We're talking about a baby born alive. And they want it to be thrown in a trash can where they have found babies alive before. This is outrageous. And we need to do everything we can to stop it. And that means, in my biased opinion, but it's an educated biased opinion, vote Republican.
So I do want to bring us back, and I gave you some floor because we did offer you at the beginning 15 minutes. You didn't take it all, so I did offer you some leeway. We had planned that time in for you to make comments that were important to you, even if it wasn't directly on the agenda. So that's why I gave you that time there, because you didn't take it all at the beginning. I do want to get back on some of the more business focused policy things here. Let's talk about a little bit of what has worked, because we've talked a lot about what's not working, the frustration, the lack of bipartisan agreement. Let's talk about a little bit what has worked. We were able to see a bill passed in the CARES Act and some of the other bills that were kind of lumped into the idea of the CARES Act to get some relief out to everyday Americans and to business owners. Let's talk about the PPP program. That's a program we hope that there's more life to it. We hope that there's going to be additional funds available to small businesses that are still hurting and to keep paying their employees. But let's talk about what has worked. How do you evaluate that program in District 8? How has the West Valley benefited from the PPP program? Has it done enough? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's done a good job, but if there's people out there that need help, certainly call my office. I mean, we helped, I think, hundreds of people get their PPP program loan grant, and also other SBA loans and grant programs, because there was more than the PPP. There was the EIDL. But let me just tell you, I'm trying to find, there was in Arizona, 85,000 entities were able to take advantage of the Paycheck Protection Program, the PPP funds. And in CD8 alone, there were 7,900 entities that were able to take advantage of it. And, there was, at the beginning, I remember being on quite a number of business calls where there was, it took like a couple weeks to get it up and running. But in comparison to other federal programs that take, months and years and stuff to get up running, it was really quite remarkable. At the beginning, I remember people were frustrated because there were certain banks that, like if they had a certain bank and their bank wasn't participating in it, then they had to go to another bank and those banks were overloaded. And so, but it all got ironed out in just a few weeks. And we helped a lot of businesses. So I think it's very successful. And that's why I'm pushing to reopen it, because there's still funds in it. We gave it, I think, $349 billion in the first CARES package, and then another 300 some billion, I think it was about another $350 billion we added towards the end of March in the PPP Flexibility Enhancement Act, or called something like that. And there's still some money left in it, so why not use it? I mean, I don't understand why Pelosi won't let that go, but, well, I guess I do understand, because she wants her radical stuff in there, and she knows that's the only way she can get it.
Well, I definitely want to say, and like I said, I've shared it, I live here in your district. A lot of my extended family lives here in your district, up and down it. My wife is employed here in your district. Now that I work from home, I guess I am too. But I know that the CARES Act has benefited a lot of people, in your district and obviously across the country. Both my parents were laid off, and we're grateful for the unemployment, and have since been gainfully reemployed. My mother-in-law, who lives and works in your district, same thing, was laid off and benefited from that. Unfortunately, she's one of the casualties of the economy, and will not be able to resume employment. But we're grateful for those things that were done. Obviously, those that were able to benefit from the stimulus payments, that were just crucial at a very uncertain time. And then obviously, the businesses that were able to benefit from the PPP loans, like I said, my wife's school took advantage of that. And my son's in kindergarten. His kindergarten teacher was able to continue getting paid, when there were no students back in March. And then obviously now again in the school year because of those PPP programs. So I know personally how it's benefited people. And so thank you for that work. We hope that there's more to come. We know there's still people hurting, and we hope that there's more to come for small businesses and just for the everyday American that's looking for employment and sometimes just looking to get by right now. To close out with the last question here, let's talk about the next Congress. Like we said, we're 30 days from an election. Usually not much gets done between now and the next Congress getting sworn in, but we hope that's not the case. We hope a lot gets done. But there's, I think, a decent chance, a fair chance, that we may still have split control in Congress. There's a fair chance the House remains Democrat. There's a fair chance the Senate remains Republican. So what do you see happening in the next Congress, and what would you like to see happen in the next Congress after the elections are over?
It would be really nice if we could actually get major things done, quite frankly. It's very frustrating for me, especially since I've worked in a bipartisan fashion so much in the state legislature. I mean, Democrats and Republicans in the state legislature, when I was in there, we would debate about certain bills. About 10% of the bills we'd debate about and wouldn't agree on, but 90% of the bills we actually got done. And as you know, I did pension reform and sales tax reform, and I did it in a bipartisan fashion because major reforms that need to be done have to be done in a bipartisan fashion. Now, unfortunately, I can tell you from personal experience, serving on 3 different committees, Rules Committee, Judiciary Committee, and Homeland Security Committee, that when the Democrats took control of the US House of Representatives, things changed. It all became about undermining and criticizing President Trump. I can tell you that started in January of 2019. In Homeland Security Committee, my Democratic chairman, Benny Thompson, just about, if not every hearing, almost every hearing, he has an opening statement. He bashes President Trump. Jerry Nadler, the Democrat chairman of Judiciary Committee, obviously bashes President Trump. He tried to impeach him. He does all these investigations. It's a total waste of time. We're not getting anything done. That is very frustrating. However, even though I was in a Democrat-controlled House, I managed to get 3 of my pieces of legislation passed out of the House this Congress under Democrat control. I have also, I don't know the number, but there's multiple bills where I was the Republican co-lead with the Democrat that I have managed to get passed out of Congress in a Democrat-controlled Congress, because I know that if Democrats are in control, I have to work with Democrats on things that we can agree on. So I will continue to do that because it's what I have to do. It's what we have to do. We have to work together. So there's still a few Democrats left that are willing to cross party lines and work with Republicans on certain things. But there is a growing number of Democrats that all they care about is gaining power. And so they criticize Trump. It's all about politics. And it's very, very, very frustrating. Now, I will want to say that in my first 8 months in Congress in 2018, I actually got a bill signed into law. Now, at the state level, that wouldn't be a big deal. But I can tell you, at the US Congress level, there are members in Congress that have been there for years and years that still have not gotten a bill signed into law. And so I'm proud that at least I was able to do that.
Well, we all hope there'll be more bipartisan agreement, in the future. Right now, we need government to get out of the way where they can, and provide assistance in just unprecedented times, where possible. So thank you for your work. Thank you for continue to be an advocate for small businesses. And thank you for spending some time with us today and getting us up to speed on what is going on. Congratulations again on the Spirit of Enterprise Award from the U.S. Chamber. And with that, I'm going to thank all of our viewers for listening in today, and say that will be a wrap on this update from Congresswoman Lesko and the Surprise Regional Chamber of Commerce. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.